Bienvenidas to Latina Literati. If you enjoy amazing books, great stories, and interesting ideas, then this is the channel for you. And today I'm going to talk to you about something that we all have, that we all use, and that we all need in modern life, the cell phone. A Friday ago, my cell phone simply stopped working. The mobile carrier explained to me that the screen had detached from the motherboard. So what that meant was that because it was under warranty, the carrier had to request a new phone be shipped. To the carrier, they would transfer the information and then I would have a new phone, but that would take 3 days. Since it was a Friday morning, I could expect the earliest that I could have a phone is Monday. So what did that mean? That meant that I had a 3-day hiatus from my cell phone. And so when you step away from technology and you step away even over the weekend from the expectations of those around you, that you will be at immediate access, that they will have immediate access to you and that you will have immediate access to information and to people, it takes a bit not just to digest and get accustomed to this new reality, but it also envelops you with a solace that is almost liberating. So remember that we are of the generation that first received the cell phones. So of my life, more of it was spent without a cell phone than with a cell phone. In fact, I remember clearly the event that caused me to finally say, okay, I'll get a phone. And in those days it was a flip phone. So I was in a car and I was rear-ended and I had my newborn daughter in her car seat in the second seat. And so here I am with no way to communicate that we need help, that we need to be picked up. It made me realize that having the facility of communication, especially with young children, you needed to be able to have that in case of emergency. And so in those days, you got to choose your own phone number. And so my cell phone number is basically my daughter's name. These 3 days were very, very relaxing. Yes, one of the first things I realized was none of the clocks in my home work. And so I went through and I picked up the kitchen clock and I picked up the clock in the office and I picked up the clock in the bedroom, and I said, well, let me take these to a clock repair person to get them repaired if they need a new motor or a new battery or something, because as we all know, we depend on our cell phones to tell time and to be our alarm clocks. But when you don't have the cell phone, or when you step away from the cell phone voluntarily, all of a sudden you need a clock. You need to know what time it is. And so that was one of the first steps that I realized I had to take. Another step was to really just enjoy this time and this hiatus and this break from the constant, I don't want to say interruptions, but you get to choose what you want to do. If you want to journal, or if you want to read, or whatever it is you'd like to do, take a walk, you can do it without having someone trying to communicate with you. It was pretty relaxing, I have to say. Although I wouldn't recommend you necessarily doing away with your phones, stepping back and saying, okay, I'm going to not use it at every moment of every day, I think is actually really healthy. And we know that. And so I thoroughly enjoyed those 3 days. And I know that it caused the people around me, the people who depend on me, a bit of consternation not to be able to get a hold of me, but it wasn't bad. And I remember when you used to wait for letters, or phone calls were something special. It was a flashback to another time. Not better, not worse, just it was a different time when time and space moved differently. We had different relationships to them. as my daughter likes to say, we now have to deal with information. We have to digest information every day that was equivalent to what a person had to digest 100 years ago in their whole life.
Communication satellites are helping to stimulate growth in global education and information sharing as part of a projected $500 billion information industry. Across America and around the world, satellites are increasing the reliability of long-distance calls and worldwide coverage of news and sports events on home screens. The Industrial Revolution expanded the strength of man's muscles in the reach of his hand. The Information Revolution is magnifying the power of his brain, changing forever the way Americans work, play, travel, and even think.
So that's huge. It's huge. It's what is called the information overload, and what that does to your peace of mind and your ability to sleep and your just general well-being. So think about that a little bit, and I invite you to spend a day without a cell phone and enjoy it. Sometimes when you're hiking or when you're in a place that doesn't have signal, you get that naturally where you're simply off-grid, and how delicious is that just for that little bit of time. I definitely recommend it, and I enjoyed it. And let's talk a little bit about the history of phones. Since the 1600s, they had what were called lovers' phones, and if you as a kid would speak into a can and then put the can in your ear and it was attached with a string to another can to a friend or relative, then you remember that you could actually hear things because of the vibrations of the string. So in a very crude way, that's really what telephones do, and people have been using those cans and strings since at least the 1600s. So that's a long time, of people using a string and a can at least to communicate. Among the book recommendations, I'll have one about the history of the phone if you're interested in that, because I think it's fascinating how as communication speeds up, doesn't mean that our communication gets better or more coherent or in any way more efficient. It just means that things are faster and faster and faster and faster, and people want responses immediately, and you're expected to be on call 24/7, and there's just no respite. And so the 3 days were a welcomed respite from the modern constant response requests. So now on to the book recommendations, my favorite part of the video. So the first one is Radiation Nation. This book really talks about the electromagnetic waves that all of the electrical screens that we use emit, and what research has shown that these are not the healthiest things to have around us. And so things like charging your phone in the evenings on the other side of the room is better than having it next to your bedstand. Things like not wearing it on yourself, but like wearing it in a bag or in a briefcase or something that is not next to you is better. And there are these little buttons that you can buy to interfere with the emitting of those electromagnetic frequencies that are recommended as well. So the book is interesting, obviously, to talk about what we don't know, all of the things that the FDA and others have not yet told us is safe with regard to the amount of screen time, with the amount of electromagnetic waves that we're exposed to every day with all our screens. And so I think it's important that as consumers, as parents, as children, as siblings, and as members of community, we should inform ourselves as to what it is that we do to ourselves when we are constantly in front of a screen or near these electromagnetic frequencies. That was the first book, and of course I will always link all of these books below. My recommendation is always first the library or your local bookseller, and if perchance they're not available at either one, then we provide links to sites like Better World Books that leverage your purchase to then help communities with literacy campaigns and books that they need. The second book is How I Ghosted My Cell Phone and Took Back My Life. So it's exactly what you hear. This professional woman decides to just step back and rebalance her life. She doesn't do away with her cell phone. She just decides to make it a more balanced existence, a relationship with her phone. And we have all been at dinners, parties, picnics, outings, hikes, whatever, and have people around us that literally cannot disengage from their phone. And we know that some people have started like putting a basket in the middle of the table. Everybody puts their phone in, and the first person to grab for it needs to pick up the tab. I mean, all of these kind of things all of these gestures that say, wait a minute, let's focus on the people in front of us and step away from the gadgets that we focus on far too much every day. So highly recommend the book. I think it's an enjoyable break and has some good recommendations. And the third recommendation, as promised, is a history of the telephone. And so a history of the telephone from the lever phones, which are those cans that I mentioned, all the way to the cell phone. And again, fascinating because this is such a central part of our lives and our communication on a daily basis. Really interesting to see how you have really people from around the world. Obviously, Alexander Graham Bell is credited with the first patents, but there were people all over the world making little contributions to what made the current cell phone possible. And of course, we always need to understand that all of the things that make screens possible, all of the minerals, come from Mother Africa. And what does that mean? That means that when you're looking at the strife in Africa, you need to ask, what are the resources there that Western nations want? Because believe me, if the country only grew broccoli, nobody would be in there coup d'etat-ing and promoting war, etc. It's always about the resources, and so that could be its own video, and I think Mother Africa deserves it. The final book I want to recommend to you is Digital Minimalism, Choosing a Focused Life in a Noisy World by Cal Newport. And it's exactly what it says. It's deciding how to step away from your digital life, balancing your digital life, and choosing to be present with others and enjoying others' company. So highly recommend it. Great book. And of course, I'll include everything in the description box below. Thank you so much for coming to the end of the video, and this is a momentous occasion because we have crossed the 30 video mark, and so there are 30 videos out there for you to check out, and I hope you will. And you'll let me know what are some of the things that you'd like us to talk about in these videos. We love to share books, and we'd love you to tell us what books you're reading this summer. And as always, we wish you mucha salud, mucho cariño y mucho amor. Gracias.